Hello there and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. On this occasion, my name is Craig Telfer and right now I am joined by my close associate Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
And you know what happens when the Gerard Kelly and the Terry Kiley of the Terrace get together. That's right. One of us is a moderately well-known Scottish comedian and character actor. The other plays Carol Fletcher in Dream Team. And when the moderately well-known Scottish comedian character actor passes away at the age of 51, his entire estate will be left to Terry Kiley, his friend of 18 years. And while we're sorting out the paperwork, we might be able to squeeze in a little chat about lower league Scottish football.
I didn't know anything about that. So this is star of City Lights, Gerard Kelly.
Yes.
And his entire estate went to somebody from... The moderately successful Sky soap.
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
I did not know that at all. I'll have to dig into that.
My digging into it was effectively going on Wikipedia and looking at Gerard Kelly because I was watching extras and was reading about him, and then I was genuinely astonished that he left his entire estate, which I think was a six-figure sum, which all went to Terry Kiley. And I was like, that name was pressing a buzzer, and he played Carl Fletcher in Dream Team. So I've got to say, I mean, you're probably listening to this thinking, my God, that's a terrible duo to name yourself after. But let's just say, otherwise, we're going to have to make these quite esoteric links. Otherwise, it's just going to be couples found guilty of filicide. And let's be honest, that's no way to start a jaunty podcast about lower league Scottish football.
But were they partners?
No, they were just friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's
Did you think they were romantic partners?
Well, if his estate lands in his lap, for all intents and purposes, I presumed that there was maybe something more than friends going on, but fair play.
No, I'm hoping, Shaughan, when you pass over, there's a little sweetener in it for me. I don't, read between the lines. I'd like to think that there's a wee bit, there's a wee slice of the pie coming my way. I don't want to say too much, but just one to think about next time you're talking to your solicitor.
I could change my expression of wish. I don't think it would be six figures. I think it might be just a small amount, but regardless, it's certainly something that I can think about.
I can imagine going around to your house. It's like Mr. Trebus's, but it's just full of abysmal shirts. That's it. You've just created a little path from your front door to your armchair and your living room, and it is just Hawaiian shirts, badly made polyester Hawaiian shirts, stacks of them in your house.
So I tell you what I would say. I've watched that Sheffield documentary about what was it called?
Life of Grime.
Yes, the Life of Grime. I found it appalling. Amusing but appalling. So my flat is tidy. I'll put it that way. It's tidy.
I think on this podcast, perhaps almost as much as teams like Forfar Athletic, Stirling Albion, we talk about Baddiel syndrome, Mr. Trebus, almost as much as them.
It's the only place that Mr. Trebus is still getting a pop. Surely, goodness, a man who popped up in one, maybe two, I think just one episode of a Fly in the Wall documentary. One of the first Fly in the Wall documentaries 23 years ago. But a good episode.
I'm sure the people that have come into contact with Mr. Trebus, they mention him a lot because it's like he's just a one of a kind. I think that you could be working for the council for decades and you will never come across someone like the Polish war veteran, Mr. Trebus.
I mean, I think he died at the end of the episode.
I think no, because I read about it on Wikipedia, and if Wikipedia is anything to be believed, that they eventually just put him in a sheltered accommodation where he couldn't be messy anymore.
They did definitely put him into a home where he couldn't be as messy. But I must have. I thought he died. I thought some words appeared at the end of the episode to say, unfortunately, Mr. Trebus has passed away.
Well, we'll go on YouTube as soon as this podcast is finished to find out the fate of Mr. Trebus and the fate of all his belongings. But just check in with you, Shaughan, before we get started. Everything good?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I've experienced a migraine yesterday, which wasn't particularly pleasant. And I also got thrashed at badminton by a genuine lower league superstar last week.
Yes, it was funny because we didn't record the podcast last Wednesday, which we would normally do, because you were double booked. However, at about maybe, I don't know, 7 o'clock roughly, maybe slightly earlier than that, I got a message from a lower league superstar, Danny Denham, to say, just to make you aware, I will be giving you updates. However, Craig G. Telfer has not turned up. He's actually running late. Then he messaged again to say that you'd arrived, but you were looking a bit dishevelled. Now, you don't like being late. Like I'll say that about it. I'll say that about you. You're a man that very much likes being on time. But he said that you were a bit dishevelled. Then he said he beat you 4-0. I'll give you other updates. He said that he was surprised at how competitive you were. He said that he was surprised at how good you were at badminton, but ultimately you weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And he also said that you said things like, if only I was playing you at my home court, I could give you a good game.
All true. All true. Listen, I can't deny that. Yes, well, I mean, the only thing I can deny, I was 7 minutes late, but that was because the traffic coming into Edinburgh was particularly ghastly. That's why that was. I'd put that more down to the traffic going onto the Queensferry Road more than anything else. But yes, did meet me at Badminton. I think that one of the things that I found quite sticky was on the side of the court I was serving. I think I lost the first match 21-4, which does not paint me in a good light at all. But the shuttlecock kept getting caught in the lights, should I say? And so I found it quite difficult to return. But I'm hoping to play him again very soon because I do believe I can beat him. So
just for clarity here, you think you would give Danny Denham, somebody who has beaten you 4-0 and 21-4 in one of the earlier matches, you think you'll give him a better game in an inverted commas home court? Yes,
well, we're going to play again through in Edinburgh, and it's going to move the court to the one next to it, so it isn't as prominently under the light. So when the shuttlecock does go up into the sky, you've got a far better chance of returning it.
No, listen, fascinated to hear how that goes. Fair play.
It was brilliant. The best bit though was afterwards, because it was at a David Lloyd gym. I used I had a guest pass. I was able to use that. So just sitting in the steam room talking about like East Kilbride and Dick Campbell and Forfar and stuff like that. It was brilliant. Great.
And just to confirm, he has officially retired. He will not be coming back.
He will not be coming back. So that's football's loss is badminton's gain. In that regard. But listen, we're not here to talk about losing heavily. We're not here to talk about shuttlecocks getting caught in the lights. We're not here to talk about spaddies. We're here to talk about lower league football. And Shaughan and I are going to present a patented 3-game podcast. It is patented. Do remember that. We'll look at a game from the Championship, another fixture from League One, and a final encounter from League Two. We're going to try and have a laugh while we do it. We came very close last week, but close isn't good enough. So this is the week where we make up for it. And Shaughan, we're going to start this podcast by taking a look in the Championship, and we'll look at Arbroath's 3-1 victory over Queen's Park in the south side of Glasgow. Ross Callaghan and Finlay Marshall scored within 60 seconds of one another earlier in the second half. Jack Wilkie added a third with a free kick that flew in past everyone and into the net. And Josh Fowler pulled back a lovely consolation goal late on. The Spiders are in 9th place, while Arbroath's strong start to the season continues. They're up to 4th. And Shaughan, you took this game in. You decided not to go to Wraith Rovers versus Ayr United. You went to see Queen's Park versus Arbroath. And give me a measured analysis on this match. I'm keen to know what you thought about it.
Yeah, so this is the second time that I've been at Lesser Hampden. We always put the boot into Lesser Hampden, and I suppose rightly so. What I hadn't done before was go into bar 1867. So I went into to there before the game. Thought it was really cool.
Whereabouts is it? Is that the other side from the?
Yeah, so I'm directly opposite the one stand that Lesser Hampden has. And when you go in, it's a kind of big size kind of social club.
Yeah, I've been in there. Yeah,
it was really busy. There was like kind of history and memorabilia right around the room. I thought that's pretty cool. It was so busy that I was kind of looking for a table and stuff. Realised that you could actually go outside. So it was a kind of outside area. You go out, and I was kind of hoping you could see over the park. That wasn't the case, but only because I think it's the changing rooms is below bar 1867.
All right, okay, I know where you are.
Like, so that kind of roof kind of goes off it's too. It's, I don't know how to describe it. The roof of the changing rooms is above the barrier of 1867, so you can't quite get. You've got a good view of Hampden. You don't have a good view of the pitch, which is a pity. But nevertheless, really good area. Really enjoyed it. It was funny. There was somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and they said, "Shaughan." I was like, "How you doing?" And he went, "Bejazzled." And I was like, "Oh." I was like, I don't know if that's the word, but it's really close. It's really close. So I will give you that. But nevertheless, there was the service was good. There was loads of cool people in it, and somebody gave me the word bejazzled. I suppose it's only when you go into the stand, that's when the problems start to appear. I thought it was a good game. I thought it was a better game than I thought it might be. I thought in the first half there wasn't much in it. I suppose similar to Raith Queen's Park the week before. Not much in it. Queen's Park might have been the better team, slightly better team in the first half, but they made so many errors in that second period. And as much as, like, obviously at one point, Arbroath were 3-0 up. I didn't think 3-0 was necessarily a kind of deserving score, but over the piece, I thought Arbroath were worthy winners. And certainly from a Queen's Park perspective, that's concerning, because when you're at home to a team that you presumably is going to be one of the teams that you're up against at the bottom of the division, that's hugely concerning, I suppose.
I suppose the big talking point is how all 3 goals were preventable. I don't think that Callum Ferry did well for the first goal. Don't think Charlie Fox did well for the second goal. And I don't think the defence as a whole, both goalkeeper and backline, did well in defending the third goal. And that's the worry, because it's one thing. Going by the highlights, and this Queen's Park produced a really good highlights package. Going by this, they had a really good chance at the midway through the first half thing. Aidan Connolly had a shot that was from the edge of the area. It was really well saved by Aidan McAdams. And then at the end, it could have finished up quite nervy. Like Pignatello at 3-1 had a header at the back post and kind of whiffed at it and headed it straight at McAdams. So if you're passing up presentable chances and then you're not defending like pretty easy chances for the opposition, you're going to be in bother. And the 3 goals they conceded, that's, if you're Sean Crichton, you've got your head in your hands watching that. Yeah,
I mean, Sean Crichton said about individual errors cost them a game, and I must admit, I don't really like interviews like that. However, on this occasion, it makes a lot of sense. I think certainly, I think Callum Ferry, it felt like he maybe took a step to his right, and then Ross Callaghan's like free kick to make it 1-0 went to his left. I think if he just stayed still, I think he would have been fine. Not entirely sure what Charlie Fox was thinking about for the second goal. It was like maybe he thought there was going to be a free kick, but he just stopped. I don't know what he was thinking about, but certainly he kind of dilly-dallied, and that allowed the cross to come in for, I think it was Finlay Marshall that scored the goal. And at the time, I thought that I thought that Callum Ferry might have been at fault for the third goal as well. Maybe not quite the case. I think there was a deflection, so maybe less blame for the third goal.
I think with that one, Sean, they've got, again, this is how good Queen's Park's highlights are, they've got a camera that's placed behind the goals, and I think what Ferry's doing is anticipating a touch. It's the Jack Wilkie's free kick. It's sort of on the edge of the area. It's not that well struck. I don't know what he's trying to do, because there's not really any height to it, and there's not a lot of swerve to it. I think he's mishit it. But by doing so, it just seems to have gone through everyone and then found itself in the net. I think that Ferry will be anticipating a touch or someone getting something onto it. I don't think he'll be expecting the ball to make it all the way through. But however, that's still a probability that a goalkeeper has to weigh up in those sort of scenarios.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm not entirely sure. I've always been of the opinion that Callum Ferry is probably the best goalkeeper in the lower leagues. I must admit, since maybe probably since he saved that penalty, since he saved that penalty against Rangers, I'm not entirely sure that's the case. So the mistakes that he made, so from Saturday, for example, certainly for that first goal, that is starting to become more commonplace, I suppose, which is an issue when this Queen's Park side is, there's maybe 4, 5, 6 players who you would hope that are experienced at that level and are going to give you good performances week in, week out, and the rest, maybe there's 10, 12, 13 players and you're hoping that they can step up. However, if people like Charlie Fox and Callum Ferry aren't giving you performances, then that's a massive issue.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right in what you say about Queen's Park. If you've got such a small squad and there's like that, your core of 6 or 7 experienced players who you're hanging your hat on, and the rest of the guys are younger players, then these 6 or 7 guys need to be at it every week. And you're right, since the beaten Rangers at Ibrox, so I think like Ferry, it was a game against Falkirk, wasn't it? Where Falkirk absolutely took Queen's Park to the cleaners at Hampden, who was particularly bad. And I think that last season you could maybe explain it away and maybe forgive Ferry because he'd been so good, and then the whole team just began to malfunction over the latter third of the season after Callum Davidson's departure. And it was just a case of let's get to the end of the season, and they were fortunate in ways that it was Hamilton's implosion that ultimately saved them from finishing that relegation playoff spot. But then you think you've had the summer to recharge, and everyone's clean slate and all that. Shaughan Crichton's taking charge of the team. We're going in this new direction. You're captain of the club. You're one of the more experienced players. There's a lot expecting from you, and then you're turning in performances like that. That's a worry where you're seeing a continuation. You've had the summer break, but you're coming back, and we're not really seeing any changes. That's going to be a worry for Shaughan Crichton.
Yeah, and especially when, like the week before, like I know a point in the Starts Park feels like a good result because Wraith are expected to be a team that challenges for top 4. Queen's Park are expected to be the bottom 3 or 4 places. So to a point away from home, that feels decent, and I can appreciate why the Queen's Park fans were happy at come 5 o'clock on Saturday. But see, watching the game, I didn't see a lot for Queen's Park. They were kind of pegged in for certainly the entire second half. That they were kind of pegged in. So I was like, on another day they've defended well, but I've not seen anything really from them that makes me think that they can have a successful season. But let's see how they compare against a team that you expect them to be there or thereabouts with them in the division. And I mean they weren't, as I said, I thought 3-0. That was a bit harsh. But based on what I saw, based on Saturday, I don't expect Queen's Park to be finishing above Arbroath. And then if that's the case, then who are they going to finish above? Who are they finishing above? Yeah.
I suppose one of the positives then is Josh Fowler's continued his good form since he joined the club. That was an excellent goal. That was actually such a well-taken goal. Just the way that Tim Scott plays the ball into him. The drag back, and there's Aaron Muirhead sliding in despairingly to try and save it before it gets curled in with his left foot and kisses off the post. That was really good. How was Fowler's play generally in that match?
So he played a wee bit deeper than Ruth. Like we've spoken about both. I suppose we've spoken about Ruth a wee bit more. I do think he's maybe taken a wee bit more time to acclimatise to that jump from League One to the Championship. There was too much in terms of Ruth that when the ball didn't stick, I would come off him, and then suddenly Arbroath were in possession. So that was disappointing. I do think Fowler, on the other hand, was somebody who does look like he suits that division. He quite often started on the left-hand side of the pitch, so he was dropping a wee bit deeper than Ruth. So whether that position continues or he becomes the kind of focal point of their attack, because I think he is such a good finisher that maybe the closer you get him to the the penalty box and the goal, the better. But no, I thought Fowler looked good. Like, just comfortable in terms of taking possession, running at a man, and then ultimately finishing as well.
And what about their central midfield? Remind me who was playing in the middle of the park for Queens?
To start with, I think it was Roddy McGregor and Louis Longridge.
Okay.
But then, who was it that went off? They went off injured. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. There was a disgruntlement in the Arbroath end because Ryan Flynn went off.
Right.
And Ross Callaghan came on.
Yes.
But I thought Ross Callaghan was very good. Really, really good. Bear in mind, he has played for 2 years. I think he was very fortunate in terms of his free kick. But just his general all-round game, I thought he was very good.
That's good. That's good. So I was going to come on and talk about Arbroath then, because a 3-1 win, that's continued a good start to the season for Arbroath. Good point against Ayr United, well-deserved point against Ayr United actually on the opening day of the season, and then followed up by going to your relegation rivals really and doing a number of them. 3-1, you think it's perhaps flattered them slightly?
To a degree, but you kind of mentioned that about 10 minutes ago, where there was a point with like maybe 5-10 minutes to go, where if Queen's Park could have made it 3-2, that would have made it a very, very jittery game. But ultimately, no. I thought Arbroath were the winners. I thought they defended really well. I thought Aidan McAdam had probably a quieter game than his opposite number in the Queen's Park goal. As much as Queen's Park maybe shaded it in the first half, I thought Arbroath were far and away the better team in the second half. And maybe that's because they had the wind. Like, there was a bit of a gale.
I think that was the case across the country yesterday. Yesterday over the weekend, it was very blustery on Saturday. Very blustery on Saturday.
But see, even just in terms of like who Arbroath were bringing on, so they brought on Ross Callaghan, they brought on Nikolai Todorov, they brought on Pettifer, who admittedly I don't know a lot about, but I know he had a really good kind of League Cup section. See, compared to like the subs that Queen's Park were bringing on, it really did feel like that Arbroath had a good bit more depth than the Spiders.
I think so. Yeah, looking guy, like when you can call on like Callan and Todorov to come on. There's not many teams in the division that can boast that degree of depth. What does this tell us about both clubs going forward, Shaughan? Do you reckon? I mean, I suppose I was going to follow up by saying that there's no championship football at the weekend. The League Cup takes precedent. There's a couple of championship teams who have qualified for the next stages. There's no championship football next season. I think Sean Crichton in his post-match interview had said that he wished he could go straight again and play and try to get that defeat out of their system and get them back on track. Can't do that because we've got this weight. But what have we learned then for both sides, and what kind of forecast does that give us for their prospects ahead?
And I don't think it tells us too much that we didn't know about Queen's Park. Like, maybe they can pull a performance out of the bag, but we weren't overly confident about Queen's Park before the season started. And based on the fact that I've now watched them 2 Saturdays in a row, I still very much feel that. I still think they will be a team that really struggles over the piece. What I am probably starting to maybe change my mindset about is maybe Arbroath. I think you have a division where, like, you have St Johnstone fans who are really happy, Dunfermline fans who are probably quite happy. Other than Arbroath, I'm not entirely sure that any fan base is particularly delighted at what they've seen so far. I'm not saying that Arbroath will necessarily challenge for promotion, but based on what you've seen from everybody, whether it's Wraith or Partick Thistle or Morton or whoever, I'm not entirely sure that Arbroath need to be too worried about anybody, albeit I think they might play St Johnstone in the next league game, so that could be a difficult afternoon for them, I suppose.
Yeah, I thought so. When I saw the business that they made, I thought that Arbroath were well equipped for the season ahead. Maybe I think when we were discussing them, I think it was maybe their striking options. Maybe they need to get another forward in there, someone who could do something a little bit different from the likes of Todorov or Riley. And I've got to say that was really good work from Gavin Riley to. Well, I mean, it kind of helped by the fact that Charlie Fox simply stopped playing. It was as if you know that way you just put down the controller. that's what it felt like with Charlie Fox here, and Riley did well to nick it off him and set Dow up to put the ball in for Marshall to score. So it was good in that. So, but I think in the middle of the park, we said that on our big preview podcast. A guy like Ross Callaghan, yes, hasn't played a lot of football recently, but he's the prototype Arbroath Championship midfielder. Someone who is just like boundless energy, someone who will get around the park, and somebody who's quite useful on the ball. I think they've got a number of players like that, particularly in the midfield, who are just like at the very, if you were to say what's the very worst, you could say they're all really, really hard working. I think they've got those guys in abundance, and they're going to call on these guys. I think they're well equipped for the season ahead, Arbroath. I wouldn't be too concerned about them. But Queen's Park, yeah, there is still that. I think that they've done quite well in some regards to push all the background nonsense to one side. However, that came back to the forefront on Sunday when the club president, Graham Shields, resigned from his position and also left the committee. Quite a terse statement on the club website. He said, "I have taken this decision after much deliberation, particularly having experienced an increased level of personal and online abuse towards myself and others associated with the club in recent months." What did you make of that statement?
Off the top of my head, he must have been looking after the club during, like see, every time we slag Queen's Park off, whether it's to do with, I don't know, like losing a wall or whatever, like he's been in charge of the club over that time. So the statement felt like he was blaming the fans, which I didn't think felt good at all.
You know, I think with that, we saw it with the likes of Stuart Kettlewell, for instance, when he left Motherwell. And you can say that I'm leaving the club because I was abused by fans. And straight away, you change the narrative away from your own failures or your own failings or what led you to this position. And then it just becomes on, oh God, aren't football fans terrible? Isn't that, you wouldn't get this in any other job, would you? Where you just get abused all the time, you know? And it paints into that really negative stereotype of football supporters that are belligerent, bellicose, aggressive, quick to temper, never satisfied. And that simply isn't the case. You know, I was looking, actually searched for Graham Shields' name into Google when I was pulling together notes for this. And alongside this, the statement about him stepping down, you're going back to when they beat Rangers in the Scottish Cup. Graham Shields was in the Daily Record talking about how I think he had a dream that, not quite on the same level as Martin Luther King's dream, but a dream all the same, that Queen's Park he woke up, he'd had a dream that Queen's Park would beat Rangers. So you're happy to take all the adulation and get your name in the paper and get the likes when the team are doing well. But then, by the same token, you've got to take the shit when the club isn't doing well. And let's be honest, there aren't many other clubs in Scotland that haven't been doing as well off the pitch quite in the same degree as Queen's Park. And I think a lot of that stops with him. And that's ultimately, we're not discussing that. Well, we are discussing it actually, but you know, I think generally that's not being discussed. It's more being discussed that, oh God, aren't football fans terrible? This man's given up all his time to look after the club, and this is the thanks he gets for it. No, look at what happened at Queen's Park under his watch, and you tell me if you think he deserves to be thanked for that.
And the fact that he has decided that like time's up, I do wonder if maybe really bad things are on the way for Queen's Park. Hopefully not, but I do wonder if he doesn't want to be the figurehead for really poor announcements for the club. I don't know. I suppose we'll soon find out.
Yeah, hope not. Hopefully Queen's Park are back in an even keel, but do remember in the just a couple of months ago, Graham Shields had been interviewed saying they need to find a way to, was it £4.7 million? They need to go from nearly £6 million to £1 million in terms of their budget. I'd jack it if I was the man that had to sort that out as well. I'd be like, nah guys, too big a job for me. Let someone else deal with it. So hopefully Queen's Park can set their lands in order. And Shaughan, just before we move out of the Championship, just as a wee bonus, one of the highlights from the weekend, actually one of the highlights of several weekends, Dunfermline Athletics 2-0 win over Adrionians. John Todd and Andy Todd both scoring for the Pars, and John Todd scoring one of the goal of the seasons.
I don't think I've seen these guys in real life. However, there's a Fife derby a week on Friday. Really looking forward to it. But my goodness, John Todd's finish.
Brilliant.
Albeit there was like three Airdrie defenders all bumping into each other. But the fact that he started the move, kept on gallivanting, and then that finish. I mein, it was such a kind of rocket shot in the top corner. An absolutely brilliant goal. These guys, I'm expecting big things from them.
Yeah.
Fair play to them.
Yeah, I do think, it's early days, but I think what we've seen from the pair of them, it feels like if their development continues at this pace, I don't think either of them are going to be at Dunfermline for much longer. They do look like they've got very bright futures ahead of them, and that's class. That's just great. The guys, it's like watching Nuno Mendes playing at fullback the way. Yes, albeit the Adrionians defenders ran into each other like Harry and Marv in Home Alone. You know that bit when they slip in the micro machines, like that kind of pratfall. But nevertheless, just a superb slaloming run and an excellent finish. Now, Shaughan, we'll drop into League One. We'll head to FK5 to discuss Stenhousemuir's 1-0 win over Cove Rangers. Dale Carrick continued his terrific start to his Stenhousemuir career. It's his second goal in his second game, and he was able to poke the ball home after just 6 minutes for the game's decisive moment. Stenny are in fourth place. Cove Rangers are in ninth and yet to get off the mark so far. Shaughan, there were 3 minutes of highlights. What did you make of Stenhousemuir 1, Cove Rangers 0?
I mean, you're right. There was 3 minutes of highlights. What I did wonder is, was this a good time for Stenny to be taking on Cove Rangers? The fact that we've discussed the fact that the Cove Rangers squad is kind of wafer thin. The fact that maybe two of their key players in Declan Glass and who else missed out?
Fraser Fivey.
They couldn't take part. It felt like a good afternoon for Stenny to take them on.
I think so. When you read the preview on the Cove Rangers website that's saying that both Glass and Five would be missing for, I think it's about 4 weeks for one, 6 weeks for the other, you're thinking this is a brilliant time to take them on. Stenhousemuir actually got quite a good record against Cove Rangers, beat them twice last season. And that was with Fivey and Glass in their ranks. But nevertheless, we know that this Cove side are really stretched thin at the moment. So to lose two of your best players, one of whom I'd say is probably pound for pound the best midfielder in the division, one of the best midfielders in the division, you've got a huge chance. And I think that Stenny were able to take full advantage of it and able to take advantage of the fact that Cove Rangers on their bench, the sub-goalkeeper Ballant Demas, they had Justin Egwebor, a big beanpole defender, and 3 teenagers. So there was no one there that Paul Hartley could turn to if he wanted to change the game. It was just a case of just let's get through it and see if we can win. And ultimately, I think that they did well in the first half. I think they were perhaps the better team. Missed a couple of decent chances. They hit the post with a header, and David Egwebor should have scored. He got a brilliant ball from Ryan Harrington, put right onto his forehead. He headed it right at Darren Jameson. But in the second half, I thought Stenhousemuir were back really the better side, and it was described as a typical Gary Naismith performance, which is just like a really, really hard-working side, just able to get the better and just eventually wear their opponents down and manage the game very professionally.
And I suppose you've mentioned the fact that Cove struggled to bring anybody off the bench in terms of that kind of wafer-thin squad. However, on a positive side, Stenny managed to bring Nicky Jameson, Scott McGill, Mike Aitken off the bench. So suddenly it kind of feels like Stenny, who seemed to be in that position a couple of weeks ago, are now starting to get players back.
Well, this is a big thing. And it's a lot of credit has to go to Gary Naismith and Martin Christie, who's the head of recruitment there. It was something we touched on previously, where when Stenny were going through their injury crisis, it would have been easy just to sign guys in for the sake of signing them up. And then you've got guys that aren't of particularly good quality, the squad's the poorer for it, and you're stuck with guys who the manager doesn't necessarily trust. They were there just to get you through a jam, and now you're out the jam. you don't really have much use for them, and you don't really see a place for them other than in a total emergency. So the fact that you do have quality players that are coming back on, the three of whom you just mentioned, it just feels like the Warriors are in a far better place for the season ahead. I think they're, as Nathan was intimated in his post-match interview, they're a wide player away from completing their team. One of the names mentioned is Luca Ross. Stenhousemuir have entered this cooperative agreement with Motherwell. They've taken Ollie White on loan for the remainder of the season. Luca Ross was a wide player who had prospered at Annan Athletic last season. I remember seeing him every time he got in the ball. I was perturbed, and I mean that in a good way, because you knew that something that he was going to be direct. He's going to run at you, put you on the back foot, and I think that's a good quality to have in a winger. So if we can get him in, that'd be really good. And I do think the squad's in a good place going forward. I think as well with Dale Carrick joining, we touched on him very briefly last week, but you can see how much of an upgrade he is on the likes of Corey O'Donnell and maybe even Matty Aitken as well, just in terms of his back-to-goal play. He's very, very aggressive in how he conducts, very competitive, not an aggression in a way that's nasty, but just always wants to get in shoving matches and just noise people up, total pain in the arse to play against, wants to get in front of the defender, and on top of that, he's really quick at popping the ball off. So he'll get it, pop it off, and then move into position. Everything's very, like automatic, if you know what I mean. It's just like he is, or instinctive even. That's what you do. It's like once the ball goes here, I move here. And then you've got guys like Ross Taylor, Ewan O'Reilly around them, guys that have got a wee bit of an X factor about them. And you could see that with Carrick's goal there. That it's a great pass. Finn Robson had a really good game, but a great pass from Robson into Ross Taylor. Ross Taylor shoots across Robbie Much. Robbie Much, difficult save to make, but for him, it's the save just bounces up very nicely, and there's Carrick there just steaming in, like instinctively hanging on, thinking there's a rebound there, just to poke it into the net, and that's what ultimately got Stenhousemuir the win. So a very good day for the Warriors.
Carrick's an interesting one, because I thought he would be a loss to Stirling Albion. The fact that he's making a step up to steady, I did wonder how well he would do, and I know it's still early days, but he seems to be making that step up very, very convincingly.
The street talk is that I don't think he got on particularly well with Alan Maybury and was quite keen for a way out, which he's been granted. And I think that there's perhaps the signings that were made over the summer, particularly if you bring in like Russell McLean, Russell McLean and Carrick, they're probably going to want to do similar-ish things. They're probably going to want to play with their back to goal. They're probably going to want to try and noise up defenders and hold the ball up and bring others into attack. Now, I think Carrick's a much better player than Russell McLean. Russell McLean's probably got a bit more flair to him. He can probably do a bit more like wacky, outrageous things with the ball than Dale Carrick can. But I think that Carrick's more reliable, but just maybe he didn't fancy him. So the opportunity came up. I think like Naismith and Christie, it was a player the pair of them liked and they'd wanted to get in for a while. So it's a huge benefit for Stenhousemuir. It allowed Corey O'Donnell to move on. It's given Matty Aitken another competition in attack. And I think it's made the attack better. There's times when you would see O'Donnell play and there were times his touch could be a wee bit wayward, a wee bit wacky, and people around him didn't necessarily know what he was going to do. Whereas with Carrick, you do know what you're going to get from him. I think that the players around him know that when he can like chest the ball, bring it under control, they're going to get it back, and they know what's going to happen. So that's just everyone knows. And once that understanding develops in time, I think Stenhousemuir's attack will be all the better for it.
And what about Cove Rangers? Because I think when we discussed the full-time teams in League One, I think Cove was the one that we thought might be the one that would struggle in, and I suppose what we've seen so far is that might be the case.
I think so, and that's really why I selected this match. We could have talked about Grinning Pete giving an 11-minute interview after watching his side get scudded at home by Hamilton Accies, but I thought, no, this is a good chance to talk about Cove Rangers. I'd worry a wee bit about Cove Rangers. It's just that it's such a small squad of players there. They had Kyle Docherty in on trial for this match, who was previously at Clyde, previously at Queen of the South. If you remember, Marvin Bartley actually paid money to sign him for the Doonhamers. Wow, you'd say to that, but he's the sort of player who just kind of flitted around the game. I didn't really notice him of any impact in this match. So you're talking about him coming in, like a guy like Leighton Bisland said in the big preview podcast, a player I don't particularly rate, and just the squad, it's just really like an odds and sods that have been chucked together. I mean, without the X factor there of Fivey like dominating the middle of the park and Declan Glass giving you pulling the strings just behind the attackers, you didn't really get much from them. Megginson had to play a deeper role, didn't really suit him. Game passed him by. Egwebor, handful. I'd describe him as a handful, but I think there was points where he was more. He got booked in the match for fouling. He should have been booked earlier on, I thought, for some of the just niggly fouls that he was making. And it's just with Cove, the players missing, and there's still room for them to come in. But it just feels like all these cutbacks and so on that they're making. I just wonder to what end has this experiment been in aid of?
I mean, I suppose it hasn't been an experiment for the owners. I suppose they managed to get to the championship, and if they managed to stay up, then maybe things would have been different because you have a kind of travelling support every second week. I don't know, but I know what you mean. It feels like an experiment, but I suppose for the owners, it's not an experiment, but it definitely feels like it's. I get the impression it's going off the rails a wee bit.
There were hardly any away fans there. I think that when the players walked off the pitch at the end, I think there was just the directors that were clapping and maybe a couple of well-wishers. I might be wrong with that, but certainly, when they've got they stand behind the goals, the Donald Smiley enclosure, that's open occasionally for away supporters. Never in a million years was that going to be open for Cove Rangers, just because there's not many of them, and it's just such a small support. I just wonder who's benefiting from this, from the club being where they are. And I don't like saying that because that's been really arrogant and thinking, well, just because Cove Rangers don't mean much to me doesn't mean they mean a lot to someone who's been supporting them for years and supported them during the Highland League days. But when I see that and just see this, like this team that's been assembled and just Paul Hartley just trying to make a silk purse out of sow's ear at the end. I mean, that's they did. They brought Justin Egwebor on to play at the back, and they stuck the big boy Parker up front. My God, Hen Brun! Somebody shouted for the stands. He's like just aye, and they're playing. I mean, we've got the SPFL Trust Trophy this evening. We're recording this on the Tuesday. That game's in this evening. That's a small team that's going to have to play another match that they could have really done without. Aye, I just think, and that's why in some ways, so I'm rambling a wee bit here, but that's why in some ways I've got quite a bit of respect for what Paul Hartley's been able to do there. It just seems that you're still being able to get quite a lot from not very much. And I suppose if you see what I mean, if you see what I mean, I hope that's made some sense.
It's weird. We're probably in like a kind of situation now where almost you kind of look at all the teams that have come up through the pyramid. Like a lot of them have had issues, I suppose. Bonnyrigg have already disappeared. Edinburgh are now sitting on minus 12 points. You wonder about Cove Rangers. There's kind of rumours about them, but in terms of just looking at them on the park, they're a full-time team, but they don't look like a full-time team, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be the pyramid. But you look at some of the teams that have come up and they do really seem to have struggled once they've got here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say that Cove Rangers haven't. This is Cove Rangers going through a sticky patch now. I mean, Cove Rangers, they were in the Championship within 3 seasons of current. They smashed their way through League 2, 2 seasons in League 1, and then in the Championship. So on that respect, it's been a success. But it's also been like about, I was thinking sustainability is a really important thing. It's not just about getting as fast as you can, because that's because you can only do that with money. What happens when the money dries out and you don't have the infrastructure in place to support it? You know, that's one of the reasons why I was really sad to see Bonnyrigg go, because I do think that they were the first like that's not the case. Edinburgh City that were non steroid fueled for I mean they did become it and that flopped, but Bornig felt like I'm not using the word proper club, but they had the fan base to sustain it, to come in and become a good League Two side. They were like a big club, relatively speaking, and I don't think the other teams that have come up necessarily are. I mean, there's still time for East Kilbride to find their feet. We'll have a better idea of them in 2 or 3 seasons what the line of the land is there. But just with other teams like Cove, small support, Edinburgh, even smaller support, Kelty, small support. But that's the whole point of the pyramid. If it was just drawn up league tables based on supports, Falkirk would win the SPFL every single season. But not a great performance from Montrose in there. Sorry, from Cove Rangers. And there you go. You've gone Queen of the South got the better of you quite easily. And there's Stenhousemuir, a team who are expected sort of like a mid-table finish. That second half, quite comfortable against them as well by the finish up. So I think they'll be desperate to get players back in action because they really need them. You can't be running with effectively the manager only got like 12 players that he can trust to make a difference.
And it feels like that's the situation that they're in. But I know Paul Hartley kind of alluded to the fact that they are looking to bring more bodies in. If they can, great. If they can't, I'm struggling to think that they will trouble the top 4 based on, I suppose, what we've seen so far.
Yeah, it feels like it. I mean, I think that the Inverness Caledonian Thistle will win the division. I mean, that's them back on positive points. And I think that's well, because there's no really, what we've seen, none of the teams have really, Hamilton have had a really good start to the season, but I think that everyone believes that there's something bad coming down the tracks for them at some point soon. So that kind of leaves just this Queen of the South, and there's Queen of the South getting pumped off Hamilton. So yeah, I just can't see Cove. I can't see Cove. If Cove can repeat last season's second place finish, I think that would be an amazing season for them. If they can get in the top 4 with this group of players they've got, I think that's a really successful season for them.
Agreed, but I don't see it happening.
Up next is Cove Rangers versus Montrose.
I do think that I've not been impressed by Montrose so far, so I might think I'll go for a home win for Cove.
Inverness Caledonian Thistle versus Stenhousemuir.
I'm sorry to say this, Telfer, but I think that'll be a home win. Quite comfortable home win.
Go for a score draw. Fingers crossed. Our third and final featured game took place at Stair Park, where Stranraer took on Edinburgh City. Mark Russell put the Blues ahead from the penalty spot just after the hour mark, but it was cancelled out by Jack Duncan's close-range finish before Bradley Barrett grabbed the winner of the Citizens with just 10 minutes to go with a genuine goal of the season contender. Certainly one of the early days, but I think this is my favourite goal of the season so far. Stranraer are in 9th, yet to register a point, and Edinburgh City bottom of the table, but this win is chipped away at their points reduction. They are now on -12. Shaughan McGuigan, thoughts on Stranraer 1, Edinburgh City 2?
It's funny, bear in mind that like Edinburgh, they're sitting on -12, but you're kind of looking at this game and you're thinking that there's probably maybe more to celebrate about Edinburgh than there is about Stranraer. I thought there was a lot to admire about Edinburgh. The fact that they've had such a terrible week, the fact that they came back from a goal down. I thought, based on what I've read, based on the highlights, I didn't think it necessarily deserved to be a goal down. I thought Stranraer were quite fortunate to be a goal up, but regardless, the fact that they managed to dig in, turn the game around, get the 3 points. You saw the video where they were all kind of jumping up and down.
Yeah.
Chris Aitken didn't seem to.
I saw that.
He didn't seem to appreciate that. He said that they sounded like they'd won a cup. Won the cup is what he said. But I believe they also gave the travelling fans a kind of an amount of money to buy a carry-out for the train up the road. There is so much about Edinburgh there is to admire, even though they are still sitting at -12 and bottom of the table. Fair play to them.
Absolutely fair play to them. Fair play to Mark Weir, the goalkeeper who instigated that whip round. And It's the thing. Michael McIndoe's post-match interview. Now, like anyone who listens to this podcast will know that we are scholars of a Michael McIndoe post-match interview. I think I could write a PhD on Michael McIndoe's post-match interviews. But I've got to say, man, of all the post-match interviews, this is by some distance, I think, his most exuberant, his most thrilling, his most passionate, his greatest rallying cry, his greatest call to arms yet. Because I think, and we touched on this last week when we spoke in it, Edinburgh have got this points deduction over an unpaid debt of about £5,000. Now, somebody at the club has fucked up big time there, because for such a relatively small amount, that this is completely jeopardised not just the club's season, but the club's future as an SPFL club, because it's got them immediately pegged as favourites to finish bottom of the table. And you could completely understand if McIndoe had walked away. The idea that he has knocked his pan in to take what was a bit of a laughingstock club, turn them into a genuine competitive force, a side who are in a really good shout for promotion, someone who got very little money, that he's worked really hard to bring in the right kind of player to augment these really gifted youngsters that he's got there, turn them into a force again this season. And then for all that hard work to be undone by an administrative error, by someone at the club not doing their job, he would be angry. He said this in his interview. He said there's a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, where our fate is like being determined by something that's happened away from us. We're not responsible for this points deduction. But he said that he wanted to use that victory as a rally call for the city of Edinburgh to push the team through this. He was talking about the players and their emotional connection. He said he's only ever experienced one other time in football, been involved in football nearly 3 decades. But this group of players, their character, the professionalism, and it was a warning, effectively, for the other teams in the division. We are going to hunt every team. That's what he said. Every team in this division. And he said they're up for the battle and they will meet this challenge head on. And I watched that. I thought, man, I would walk into brick walls for this man. Sorry, no. I would run through brick walls. Ow, my head.
I would walk at the brick walls.
I'm walking in brick walls for this man. But I wish I was playing for Edinburgh City, because you saw the celebrations at the end with Barrett's goal to put them to ultimately give them one. You saw the celebrations at the end. You saw the players going over to the boys behind the goal to high five them at the end. It's brilliant. It's such a tall ask, even just to get on to positive points. And by that point, the other teams could be running away from you. But I think it's a challenge, and I think that McIndoe likes a challenge. I thought that might be not too big a challenge, but the kind of challenge where you'd be exhausted having to face that. The club have been, was it 21 points they've lost since he's been manager there, none of which has been his fault either. It's all been through stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So you could be entitled to just be like, I'm exhausted. This is too much. I've done everything I can for this club. I need everyone pulling in the same direction. We're not all pulling in the same direction. Why am I bothering? So it's good for him to be like, listen, that victory, that is, now we have set the standard, and this is a warning for the other team's division. We're coming for you.
So I agree. I totally agree. And if he can channel that, if he can keep that, I suppose, that message going through the changing room, then fair play to him. But even just thinking about it. So let's say you need to get to 40 points, 42 points to stay up. They're going to need 55, 57 points. I mean, it feels like a slog, and that's just me thinking about it. So that must be a slog for Michael McIndoe. It must feel like a slog for the players. I presume it feels like a slog for the fans. So you're right, that win at Stranraer and the post-match interview for Michael McIndoe, which is so good, brilliant. But can he keep doing that week after week after week? Maybe he can. I don't know. Can. But to me, it feels like a slog, and you think, as a fan, as our fans or maybe players who Michael McIndoe had suggested to this season to say, listen, we can win the league or we can get promoted this season. They must now be thinking, well, that's not going to happen. Now I'm in a relegation fight, or mid-table is as good as we can do. I mean, that's that feels like a slog. If they can drag it out, fair play to them. But it's a totally different season now.
It's a completely different season, and there will be players. I think everyone at the club will be disappointed, like we say, angry, disappointed. Guys who will have stuck around because they thought they were entering a title challenge. Now it's a relegation battle. However, I think if you're an Edinburgh player, after that match, you'll just be you'd be absolutely counting down the minutes till the weekend. They're playing an Athletic on Saturday. I'm going to go along to that match. But if you're an Edinburgh player off the back of that, you'd be like, bring it on. Bring on. The manager's ability to galvanise and be able to wring like the very maximum out of a group of players. I think if there's for some other managers might find that a wee bit too hard. Know him. He'll be like. I remember getting told when they had that points deduction and were dropping out of League One into League Two, or certainly even prior to the points deduction. Once they were given that 6-point deduction, he said, well, you know what happens? See, when we stay up, it's going to be even better. It's going to be even more satisfying. Now, ultimately, that didn't work out. But I think that this would, if he's able to, if Edinburgh City can stay up this season, I think that's an even more impressive achievement than the third place finish last season.
Fair play. But I suppose there is a concern that surely at that point, everybody involved at Edinburgh, whether that's Michael McIndoe, whether that's the better players, that they might be thinking to themselves, I maybe need to get out of here. And I appreciate that's a discussion for another day, but I just feel that points deduction has an instant impact, but it might have a more long-lasting impact as well.
The thing is, Shaughan, like with a lot of these things, it's you're angry now, but then see by the start of September, tough. It is what it is. You have this point deduction. You've got to play through it, and that's what these Edinburgh City players are going to have to do. The context of the season has changed, but the ambition will still be the same, to win as many games as possible. It's a tough ask. I believe in the manager, and I believe that even if they didn't have that points deduction, it would still be a big ask, to try and, because like we're saying, I'm not comparing to Paul Hartley, but they've got a small squad. Probably the smallest budget in the division, and he is going to be asked to try and wring every single drop from it, and he'll be doing that regardless if they've got this 15-point deduction, if they're challenging for the title. I think he's got what it takes to do it. If there's any manager in the country I would back to get Edinburgh City out of this jam, it would be Michael McIndoe.
And I suppose they had a tiny bench, probably the smallest bench in Scotland at the weekend, maybe only 4 subs. However, the subs that they were able to bring on was Bradley Barrett and I think Malik Said was one of the other subs. So they were able to bring in quality, and as he alluded to in his post game commentary, that might be the case that now they can, on a Saturday, they might be able to actually start their best 11.
I mean, if you're able to bring on guys like Bradley Barrett, that goal was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. To have I would say the chutzpah. That's like Paul Gascoigne. There's only a handful of players that you see where that's such an impudent streak like that. That's like Paul Gascoigne in full flight for Rangers, that kind of goal. I mean, for those that haven't seen it, and my goodness, please go and watch the highlights. Stranraer's highlights, as usual, 10 out of 10 for them. Brilliant stuff. Free kick, punted down the centre circle by Eden Lynch. Gets half cleared by, I think it's Dan McManus, and it lands at Bradley Barrett. Controls it with his left foot, basically almost like controls it and flicks up for himself, then hits the thing in the volley, and he strikes the ball so cleanly. It's just in this absolutely exquisite corridor of perfection that is just, it's too far away for Josh Lane to get a hand on, but with the same token, if it goes any wider, it's hitting the post. So it's just in this absolutely beautiful arc where it can just go past the goalkeeper and into the side of the net. Absolutely fabulous goal. And to do it at that time in the match as well, where you think it'd be easy just to control it and hook it like into the box for one of the big boys to try and get their head on. But to try and do something like that, incredible goal. Absolutely incredible. I mean, there's been some great goals so far this season. John Todd's goal was brilliant. Jack Healy's against Wraith Rovers, Mark Stowe's against East Kilbride, all great goals. I think this has been the goal of the season so far.
Yeah, really good. I don't think Stranraer were particularly good on the day. Chris Aitken said it was maybe the worst performance that his side have had since he came in. But Edinburgh were worthy at least of a point, and I know it was kind of late in terms of getting back on level terms and then winning it late on, but I thought they deserved it, and the fact that Stranraer were so poor is alarm bells are ringing, I suppose.
I think so. I mean, it was something that Chris Aitken was furious in his post-match interview, but like McIndoe was really angry. Chris Aitken was just like angry with his players, and the groundsman, by the sound of things, well, he criticised the very critical of the pitch, which you don't tend to hear from in post-match interviews. You maybe hear it from opposition managers when they go to a ground, they criticise the pitch, but not the home manager criticising his own turf. So there's obviously a bit of an issue there. But just said they didn't think his team were at it. Edinburgh deserved the win. The first half performance is one of the worst since he's been at the club. And I mean, it looked like a fairly nothing game of football. Going by the highlights, the chances were very scant. But just when they got the penalty, I think it was Lewis MacArthur trod in James Dolan's foot, really clumsy for the big defender there, and Mark Russell put them ahead. You would thought that the club would use that as the team would use that as a platform to kick on and go on and take the game by the scruff of the neck. But that didn't happen. The performance didn't improve at all. Still, Edinburgh were the better side, and then were able to go and kick on and ultimately win. And I suppose as well the thing you'd be worried about was, like we said, that Josh Lane was one of the signings of the signs of the summer. I mean, he didn't really cover himself in glory for Jack Duncan's goal. Sort of fluffed it. I mean, great work for James Stokes down the left hand side to get that cross chucked in, but he seemed to fluff at his punch, and he sort of hit it off Duncan's midriff, and it went into the net. So there's that. When you've got a player who I thought was a sure thing, when he's letting straightforward crosses go through like that, And I suppose it didn't gift up too many chances. Like in terms of 2 goals, like it wasn't as if Edinburgh created another 3 or 4 chances on top of that. So maybe defensively, you could argue that they done okay. However, at home against Edinburgh, they also didn't really create anything other than that penalty. So we spoke about it in the preview podcast. The kind of lack of the kind of dearth of forward options, and it feels like that's very much the case. I know they've brought in O'Donnell. He had a couple of wee kind of brief moments, I suppose, but whether he's a man to fix that, I don't know. You'll know better than me. Yeah, you could see in those highlights the stuff that Corey O'Donnell's really good at, and you can see some of the stuff that frustrates the life out of you. I mean, early doors, there was a chance that fell to him, and albeit he was offside, it was about 6 yards out, and he hooked the ball, and he sent it skying over the crossbar. And you're thinking, you should be putting that on target. And I know it's offside, but it doesn't. So it's not counting as a chance, but you've got to put that in. But then in the second half, he had a really nice run where it was sort of jinked between 2 players, and he could have actually scored himself. In fact, there was a really good bit where he went through and twinkle toes, but Lewis MacArthur, sort of falling backwards, managed to get a toe, poke good it away, tackle, and then chucked himself in it. So fair play to MacArthur, because if you give away a penalty, throwing yourself in front of the ball like that, that's a good way to make up for it. But O'Donnell definitely has something about him. I think he will end up frustrating the life out of Stranraer fans, but he will add to them. I just worry that they've got quite a lot of forwards. If you're talking about the profile of Stranraer forwards, you would all put them into incredibly hardworking, incredibly enthusiastic, maybe lacking in a bit of quality here and there. Now O'Donnell
does 5 goals.
Now you've got another 4 goals added to your pool with O'Donnell coming in for the season. Like O'Donnell can do special things, but he will frustrate the life out of you, and I suppose that's why he's at this level. You can take one look at him, you can see some of the stuff he doing, you'd be like, what on earth are you doing here? And then likewise, you can do something like, what on earth are you doing here? So I'm not sure. But that's the worry. That's just the worry. It doesn't seem like a particularly happy place, Stranraer, judging by that interview. I mean, he was absolutely seething. And I suppose as well, the Edinburgh players were celebrating, but that's a huge win for them. And if they want to dance around, listen to Wagon Wheel, that's great. Don't be bitter about it. Don't be bitter about it, Chris.
Still a song I'm not overly familiar with, other than Falkirk singing it and now Edinburgh singing it. No, don't know that song at all.
No, I don't know. I think it says it. Darius Rucker, the guy that was in Hootie and the Blowfish. I think it might be he's either covered it or he wrote it. I don't know. I mean, Hootie and the Blowfish. You a fan of theirs? Did you have is it Cracked Rear Mirror?
I'm aware of them rather than being a fan of them.
He sounds like Lemmy doing an impression of an American singer, Darius Rucker. It's not quite.
I mean, if that's how they sound, then I probably wouldn't be a fan. No.
Hey, Mama, rock me. Up next, East Kilbride versus Stranraer.
I expect East Kilbride to win that comfortably.
Yeah, East Kilbride got off the mark by beating Elgin City 1-0, so they're up and running. And a big game as well. Mentioned this, I'm going to go and see this. Edinburgh City versus Annan Athletic.
Oh, I think Edinburgh will continue with their decent form with that win, and I think they'll take all 3 points for this.
Yeah, hope so. I think they'll be looking at Annan. Annan have certainly started the season a lot better than I would have expected. Pulling that last gasp win over Elgin City and holding Stirling Albion to a draw as well. So they've done done well. But listen, trophies aren't handed out after just 2 games.
No, but it did sound like the kind of shouty woman had managed to travel to Stirling based on the highlights. So fair play.
Hopefully she stays there. Shaughan and I are going off to record a mailbag episode for our Patreon subscribers. You sent us in loads of questions last week and we're going to answer the second half of them. If you want to listen to it, please go on patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. And from as little as just £2 per month, you can access some high quality conversation about Scottish football, including the episode we are about to record. Do you want to know our thoughts about Gretna's rise through the Scottish football? You'll have to pay to find out more. Now, Shaughan, there is not 1 inch of doubt in my mind. We'll be back next week to talk more about Scottish lower league, so we'll catch up then.
Might as well.
Enjoy your football, but unlike the flabby Edinburgh City fans who took off their shirts and waved them around their heads in a doomed bid to distract Mark Russell from hitting his penalty to open the scoring in Stranraer's match against Edinburgh City, please do so respectfully. Thank you.